All right, so I'm here today with Maryann Jacobsen. She is a health expert, a registered dietitian, and has written just, I was looking at all the books she's written. There's so many. If you want to learn how to feed your children, you should definitely check her out, and we'll give all the information below. But specifically, Maryann had even as a registered dietitian, had a time in her life where there was a nutrient she was deficient in. She wasn't aware of it, and it was greatly impacting her life. So Maryann, welcome. Thanks for coming on today.
Yeah.
And you were just talking about this incident. Can you give a little background on what kind of showed up in your life in your midlife that wasn't expected?
Yeah, I think just now looking back, in my 20s and 30s, I was on birth control, so I didn't have cycles like until I started trying for kids and I was married. And I always had normal, the complete blood count they check. Just iron wasn't ever a problem. I never was anemic. And now I realize because I didn't have the cycles, I'm also an exerciser and runner. So that's another factor that I'll talk about. But then I go to have two kids in a row. And after I have my kids, now, iron decreases, research shows, because when you have a kid, they need iron that last trimester.
Yeah.
They're taking your iron basically. And I just kind of continued on, my 40s with now regular cycles, no more birth control. And as I got, my later 40s, overall, I was tired a lot, even though I exercised. Like, I just kind of assumed it was, my kids, or maybe I'm in perimenopause, and just, always feel like I'm just tired. And when I would go every couple years, year and a half to the doctor, and they always ran the complete blood count. I was always normal. But there was one level, it's called RDW, the red cell distribution,
Yeah.
that was high. And I think I was just tired. I wish I would have talked to the doctor. No one asked me about my cycles,
Uh-huh.
no one, like about this high RDW. Now I realize that's a potential sign of iron deficiency. So I look back at my labs, I had 3 of those. So I had low iron stores, and I had no idea, and I should have, but because I was, you see from my books, I was researching kids. I kind of let myself, now I'm researching midlife. I'm very interested in developmental stages and how our bodies change and what we need. So then I was doing a half marathon. I used to run marathons back in the day, starting to get more into it. And I was just feeling crappy. I did this half marathon. And I was like, I used to find this fun. I remember like, this is torture. I'm running this half marathon. It's pure torture. I'm like, I'm never doing this again. Little did I know I was anemic for that whole half marathon.
Wow.
So I went to the doctor a couple months after that for a physical, and then I was anemic. Then my iron stores had depleted until I was anemic. And then the doctor's like, you have mild anemia, take a multivitamin. I'm like, are you kidding me? Then I was like, I just researched it, and I was like, first of all, multi is not going to get my iron up. My ferritin was 10.
Wow.
It was like, and so I was just like, I just had really bad experiences. I think the medical community should have caught it, should have at least asked, and I remember asking a nurse practitioner back when I was maybe 45, like, what can I do, midlife, and, I was taking vitamin D and, multivitamin. And she's like, you're doing everything, so that would have been a great opportunity to talk about your cycles. You can, so yeah, I think then I did research, and I think I'm involved in these communities for midlife, perimenopause, menopause, and a lot of women get heart palpitations. And that's one of the things I had. I also have a history of anxiety. So I had it in my late 20s, but that's also when I went off birth control. So I'm kind of curious if maybe my iron was starting to go lower. And now I have none since I've corrected my iron. I thought it was just anxiety, but so many women have palpitations. So ever since then, I comment, I say, get your ferritin checked. And they're like, and what's even more sad is that ferritin, a lot of times, like the lab will say regular is between 20 and 150. And so if someone's 22, the doctor's like, you're normal. And it's like, you're on the lower end. Not only that, 30 or less is considered deficiency by
Yeah.
most of the sources I found. Anything 50, and we're talking microgram per liter,
Hmm.
50 or less, with symptoms of feeling tired, all the different things, feeling cold, having increased heart rate.
Yeah.
And women, the fact that we don't know this is, I think, crazy. My daughter's 14, and so I'm like, look, I'm going to get her ferritin checked. I know the doctor's going to be like, oh, what? But
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, she needs to know to take care of her iron because she's
Yeah.
the full life. She's starting high school. Does she want to be tired? And so many of these athletes are probably really low
Yeah.
because, we know the big four, like, if we have low intake, and I didn't have low intake, I eat a very balanced diet.
Mm.
If you're vegetarian, you're at risk. If we have increased loss, so if you have menstrual periods, if you have heavy periods, 90% likely you have low iron.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
you could already just start taking iron without getting it checked. If you
Hmm.
have poor absorption, like you have some kind of, Crohn's disease, or you've had surgery,
Hmm.
um, that would cause, any GI problems, and, and then let me see, I wrote an increased demand. So if you
Yeah.
exercise a lot, so I ran, that utilizes more iron, you need higher levels. So, you know, I don't know, I guess all of a sudden this became something that I felt really passionate about
Yeah.
because if
So did you, after you did so you did your half marathon, likely in a state of mild anemia, or at least low
yeah.
ferritin anemia. Did you continue to run after once your iron levels were sufficient?
Yeah, I still run. I think I did another half marathon when we traveled to do it with friends. Um,
You feel
and
like you
and
could
that,
tell any difference?
yeah, I could tell a difference. Yeah, for sure. But I think I'm not interested in doing longer distance
Sure.
anyway, so I'm kind of done. But I still like to run, and I do feel, a lot better running. I do run walk now, just because I'm, But so
So
yeah, I mean,
what other symptoms did you said you had palpitations,
mhm.
just general fatigue? Did you have any hair loss or headaches or?
No, it was palpitations, just feeling tired. Like,
Mhm.
just sometimes where there's no way. I did this 10-mile run, and I remember it was my friend's 50th birthday, and I could not physically get off the couch. Imagine myself getting ready. Like, it's
Wow.
just that, like, you just feel like, you can't do anything. I think
Yeah.
I probably felt a little cold. Definitely increased heart rate. Like, and when I exercise, I'd be like, wow, my heart rate's high, when I'm running.
Hmm.
So those were the biggest things.
Yeah.
Um,
So say a woman is suspecting, yeah, when what you're saying is like, man, this is her story too, because it definitely is. If so many patients, this is their story after for years and years and years. What is are there any specific tests you recommend then for them to
yeah,
go give to the doctor?
ideally you would get a whole iron panel, but I think,
Mhm.
the complete blood count mixed with just a ferritin. The problem with ferritin is 10% of the time it can be elevated if you have inflammation. So maybe if you have an autoimmune disease, or then I would get the whole iron panel, especially if you have symptoms, and
Mhm.
especially like we talked about the four things, like, if you don't feel like maybe you're postmenopause, so you're not, you don't feel tired.
Yeah.
Um, I still think it's good to check your ferritin just to know how it's changing.
Yeah.
'Cause maybe as you even get older, and if you're a woman, I'm talking about,
Hmm.
maybe you want to give blood because,
Yeah.
as we get older, it changes if we don't want it to be too high either.
Hmm.
So, ferritin, I think, is a good, that's what I check.
Yeah.
If you have inflammation, then I get the whole iron panel. So you can look at those levels with your doctor.
Hmm.
And if it's elevated not because your iron stores, but because inflammation, the other, like the transferrin, all that will show that that's low.
Yeah.
So I think it depends, but I think at least just a ferritin every time you get your blood checked. And if your doctor won't check it, most of them will. It's because it's not like that crazy of a,
Right.
just going, because I actually had this, I posted a podcast and a blog post, and one of my readers came in, she's like, thank God you told me about this. I just went to my doctor. I was feeling tired. I had palpitations, and we ordered the ferritin and it was low. It was like 14. And
Mm.
she's like, I would have kept going. She would have been like me until she was anemic.
Yeah, yeah.
So she was like, thank you. So we need to be our own advocates. And I'd like to help change get this be a test that I think there's other tests like B12,
Uh,
vitamin D that people should have checked because,
yeah.
they go through all like the metal, getting your heart checked because you have palpitations, and that costs a lot to get that checked
Right.
out, and it's crazy that, that we know even in like heart failure patients that this one study they did, the people with low ferritin at the beginning, they didn't have heart failure. And then they followed them 15 years and more people that had low ferritin had heart failure. So we know it's, our heart is going to pump harder if we
Yeah.
don't have enough, we can't get oxygen, to our body. And
Mhm.
that's, over short periods. But if you're doing that over the years, that can affect your heart function. So
Yeah.
it's, I
It
could give
does
you,
seem like a lot of practitioners are very, just because of the whole hemochromatosis thing. So many practitioners like, oh man, you just too much iron is always a problem because there is this essentially kind of disease state of iron out there, even though that's a very small number of people, but just the idea that there's this disease state makes makes a lot of doctors less likely to draw, the extended panels and say, oh, no, if your ferritin is 21, then yeah, you're good to go. Even though, like you're even mentioning, if a woman's like hair is falling out and her ferritin is 21 or 22, it's just going to keep falling out. It's going to take, you're going to have to get up to 50 to 70, make her hair stop falling out, which is suggestive that, she's definitely in a iron deficient state, even though she doesn't have frank anemia going on. So those are super good points.
also too, it affects our thyroid. So we don't have enough iron,
Mm.
our thyroid, which is very common in midlife, thyroid problems.
Yeah.
Um, so it's, I think we have a problem with, we're so afraid of giving over, toxic amounts.
Sure.
But if we can measure the levels, so I feel comfortable like with vitamin D too. I check my levels
Yeah.
so I know how much to take. And so
Mhm.
with iron, I know that, I'm not even close to 150, which is the upper limit.
Yeah.
So, I've kept around 50. That seems to be good for me. It'll probably go up as, I get older.
Hmm.
Uh, so if you can, the biomarkers are so important. Get it checked. And so you don't have to worry about, getting too much. So like there's a recent study shows we don't absorb as much from food as they think. I
Yeah.
think it to be 18%, they thought. Iron's just tricky. It's just
Mhm.
not absorbed easily.
Yeah.
Um, so it's more like 15%. And so there's, like it's just a problem. Like it's a, I think Inside Tracker, they do biomarkers, and in their, people that go to them, about 50% of women are low in ferritin. And that
Mhm.
it's hard to find, like I looked at research studies, like what's the prevalence? And a lot of times they're not even measuring ferritin, so we kind of don't even know. But
Right.
if you look at a study where they just like um, measure ferritin, I think it was really low, and like 40% of women, like they just do this random study, and it's like we're seeing how low it is. Like if we
Mhm.
measured it on more, especially women, not saying that men can't be affected, especially if they're,
Sure.
endurance exercisers and they're vegetarian, you got to be careful of that.
Hmm.
But, so yeah, I think, I understand that with a lot of these, with nutrition, there are people at higher risk for getting too much, but that's why we check these levels. And so, we don't want to just take it. I don't recommend, unless you're really heavy periods, just, I think you could take it,
Hmm.
but get your levels checked and monitor them, you
And
know.
do you have recommendations or suggestions on kind of best timing to take it, or
Yeah, iron is best to take, on an empty stomach about 1 to 2 hours between eating. You don't want to take it with calcium,
uh-huh.
magnesium, other minerals. So that's why multivitamins are kind of tricky. It's
Yeah.
just not absorbed as much. And so if you're pregnant too, I mean, I wish I could go back and take more iron separately. When I was pregnant, there was one study where they had women take their prenatal vitamin, and the other women took the prenatal vitamin with additional iron.
Uh-huh.
And the women that took the additional iron, their ferritin stayed the same. But the women who just took the prenatal, their ferritin was reduced significantly. And so that lower iron, then, if you breastfeed, you might get a break because your periods stop.
Yeah.
But, if you start with your cycles again, and then you have a lot of women will go have another child, and then
Mm.
they're taking the prenatal and they think, oh, I'm fine. And a lot of women become anemic during pregnancy. They should be, I mean, I wish, if I could be pregnant again, I would do it differently, not just with iron, but so I'm sorry, what was the original question? I think
Yeah, no, that's perfect. You're answering it just right. Just basically about dosing, timing,
oh
and
yeah, so dosing for me, like the old way is to give like 1 to 200
mm,
milligrams a day, and a lot of people get sick off that or they have stomach issues. Research is now showing that like 65 milligrams every other day
mhm,
is actually you absorb more because
yes,
hepcidin, that the hormone, when you get a lot of iron, that hormone goes up and it decreases the absorption of iron. So it's actually less, around 65 milligrams for me every other day. My ferritin went up nicely. Now I take it once a week, and then during cycles I take it every other day when I have
yeah,
my cycle. And research shows even taking it once a week in adolescent girls increase their ferritin from like the 20s to 40s,
mm-hmm,
taking it once a week. So we don't really need a lot of iron. We just need to know our levels. And so now I'm kind of in a maintenance. If I just stop taking it, nothing, depending on your cycles, it would just go back down.
yeah,
So, you have to, a maintenance level might be different than get it up.
right, right. No, I
Yeah.
think that's a super good point because there's definitely there's some groups out there, Facebook groups, these kind of things, with thousands of members tens of thousands of members who suggest, you got to take 300 milligrams a day, you got to take 250 milligrams a day, you got to take these massive doses of iron to get your levels up, which one just creates havoc in the digestive tract. And because the body is so, like you mentioned, that hepcidin,
Mm-hmm.
it's so intelligent about what it needs, when it needs it, how it's going to utilize it, what's best. It has so many stop gates in place for iron, which I feel like is another way where more practitioners or even women who are going in and concerned about their iron, not getting too much iron, can be like, you know what, my body is so intelligent. Uh, Unless I'm literally getting iron infusions and taking these just egregious doses, my body will kind of decide what it needs and what it doesn't need, and it'll show it to me.
Yeah, yeah. I think people are. I kind of felt like that too. Like, oh, I don't want to take iron, but it's like when you look at it's just kind of this. People, I don't know. They don't really know why they feel that way. They've just heard of, when you
Hmm.
dig into the research, you can see that it's like that balance. Of course, you don't want too much, but it depends on again that those four, where your intake, how much loss you have, increased demand, and then
Yeah.
absorption. So there are some people, if they have like Crohn's, they're getting probably their iron checked all the time.
Hmm.
And if you have, as you get older, you don't have as much stomach acid, that can affect, you're not you absorb some iron in the stomach, and so iron's really, that's another reason the elderly are oftentimes um, you know can have low iron and don't know. So it's, if we
Is this
just
something you talk? So do you talk about these kind of things in your midlife books?
yeah, so my midlife books are not done yet because
Uh-huh.
there's some research, but I've decided that I'm gonna do several books because
Uh-huh.
it's just, there's so much that changes, and the nutrition is really intense. So I'm gonna do, my first book is gonna be on just understanding how your hormones change after 40,
Yeah.
and how things that we can do, most women don't really understand it happens really early. As
Mm.
early as 35, you can start in this very early perimenopause. And, once your body, your hypothalamus starts to sense that your egg supply is going down, then
Yeah.
your hormones change. You actually get higher estrogen. You still may have regular cycles. And so, there's a lot of changes that go on that women just aren't even aware of. They go to their doctor. The doctor runs all these tests. A lot of times it can be nutrition. It can be iron. I think that's a big one. B12, we're also, not absorbing as well as we get older. So I think women deserve to know how their bodies are changing and what the options are. And so since I'm already doing all that research for myself, but yeah, I'm going to do several books, and then I'm going to put it all in one big book for people that want like it's kind of like what to expect midlife. Because we do all this stuff for puberty. And then I want to do some for men too, because for my husband, but it probably won't be, I won't do several books. I'll probably just do one because he's younger than me, so he's got a little more time.
Gotcha.
Because what we do at midlife, we have to invest in our health. It will help make the rest of our, as we get older, now's a great time to make these changes that will allow you to live a really good quality of life. It's not about living forever, but invest at midlife, and no matter what's happened, maybe you haven't, taken care of your health, or a lot of people that start to have these symptoms and they think, wow, like I thought that's kind of how I was, like, I'm healthy, I've been exercising, but I just, you can't know everything. So.
And would you say the last decade of high ovarian function for a woman, is that, and from what you're looking at, what you're researching, you find that plays a huge role in her, say next 20, 30, 40, 50 years?
Yeah. Well, it's that. So you have the changing hormones, ovarian function, and then you have the biological or chronological aging. So they both are kind of, something changes are due to those hormones. Estrogen is very protective, and progesterone for health. So women are actually we have much lower heart disease risk until we go through menopause. And then women's risk is even to men. And so I believe that there's a lot we can do. You can take hormones, that's one option, but there's a lot of other things you can do if you understand, it's kind of like an unmasking, like, like with your kid, if you've done everything for them and you send them out into the world and they can't do anything. That's like when we take estrogen away, sometimes it unmasks like, health problems that we have, that estrogen was working extra hard. So I want to help women see, and with men, testosterone is more of a gradual decline. So with women, it's just like there's a 4-year period, where estrogen and progesterone really just go down.
Gotcha.
And so it's, more of a sudden, where with men, you kind of have a more gradual. So you don't that's why women kind of go crazy. Not all, but because it's just like, it is. But yeah, there's also the nutrition in there. And I thought it was perimenopause. Maybe I think that was part of it, but it was just the fact that those really heavy periods are part of the hormonal changes in a good portion of women. And it just puts you at risk for, if you've had children, like it's just all these things on top of each other.
Yeah.
And, and it takes even when your periods stop, the iron, one study showed it took 5 years to go back to normal. So that's 5 years, someone could probably take some iron to help. And then when they, cut back or not take any when they're older.
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, I think there's just so much here. It's been overwhelming. Like, I think kids were a little more, I did a lot of research, but they're kind of like fresh. Like when you get older, you have all this, there's all these things that can go wrong, but So yeah.
What is the big send off thing you give to you, or suggestion or tip you would currently be giving to a woman, say between age 40 and 55?
I say you have to be your own health advocate. You cannot rely on either the, traditional medicine has its perks and its, its benefits and, its pros and cons. And then the alternative medicine has some pros and cons too, but you can't rely on either of them. What I want to do is educate women about their body and the changes so they can go to that professionals and be like, these are my questions. So you can find, you might say, what, I don't want you as a doctor. Yeah. Find someone you can really talk to. I changed doctors. I had really bad experiences. And now I have a doctor that I can talk to. She runs more tests. She'll run tests that I want. So you have to be your own advocate. You have to learn about your body. You don't have to know everything, like to the point where I am. That's why I'm doing this,
Uh-huh.
so I can, put it all together so women can go out there and get the help they need, because there's a solution for everything. If you're
Yeah.
having symptoms, maybe it's hot flashes or heart palpitations, you don't have to suffer. There are solutions out there, but there's not just one. It's not like every woman should do X, you
Right.
know. There's principles like, get your levels checked, and, make sure, like we talk about iron, I think B12 is really important.
Mhm.
Vitamin D, know what your levels are. And if your doctor says they won't run these tests, and find a new doctor.
Yes.
Um, or, you can pay
Nice.
for stuff on your own. It's, I know money can be an issue, but sometimes it's not even that expensive to just go to a LabCorp. Or
Oh yeah.
we don't have to, we can take our blood pressure at home. There's so much we can do now.
Mm.
It used to be like you just go to your doctor and they had all the, and I'm not saying be a doctor, I'm just saying, we have to be our own advocate, because, a lot of doctors don't know a lot about midlife health.
Yeah.
Even something like the menstrual cycle, there are times where cholesterol is higher, and that they don't, I think our, doctors should know this, take it into account.
Mm.
If, if a woman's on her menstrual cycle, she might have more inflammation. So if they're checking like CRP, don't take it when you're, like they don't, I think women's health has kind of been ignored
Yeah.
because of, I think we just need more, I'd like to advocate for more change in our healthcare.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure.
So Maryann, where can people find you online?
So Maryann Jacobsen, en.com. You can sign up for my newsletter. I also have a midlife newsletter. And,
Nice.
I'm on Facebook, and from there you can, find me on Facebook and, Instagram. I try and do more social media, but, I like to it takes a lot of time, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to get there. So yeah, and then my books, Maryann Jacobsen, you can find on Amazon. I have, books. Fearless Feeding is, all ages
Yeah, that one's pretty cool.
development. I have Picky Eating is a big developmental stage. Um, Mindful Eating for kids, but also like just the whole family. How to Raise a Mindful Eater is just 8 principles for
Mm.
that work for people of all ages, but it's, it's focused on kids. But the feedback I've got is that people are like, oh wow, I can use this too.
Yeah.
And then I have a book on puberty for girls, understanding their changing body. It's called My Body Superpower. So
Mm.
it's all about teaching healthy habits through a positive body image, because that's usually when girls start to not like their body, or they think,
Sure.
they wish they were bigger or smaller, or and so it teaches healthy habits through a positive body image, like how, your appetite signals your functioning. So I think health is more exciting when we get a internal benefit, not like to look a certain way, but
Yeah.
wow, we're super functioning when we eat balanced,
Good.
and exercise helps us, our sleep, helps us with learning, and it talks about emotions, and, you know, um, all these superpowers that we have that we actually kind of ignore because we think they're bad, or we're too
Mm.
hungry. That's not good. Well, of course, hunger, you're growing. So that was a different book to do. And
Yeah.
so I went from puberty to to midlife. So
That's gonna be super helpful. That's gonna be super helpful.
yeah, thanks.
All right, so we'll put all Maryan's information in the show notes. Definitely check her out. Her books are super sweet, and she's got great blogs too. I mean, you lay it out thick on your blogs. That's fantastic.
Yeah, my iron one is still like, if you go on the blog page, it's like the third post, because now I'm doing longer posts. I don't post as frequently, but so
Uh-huh.
that one's there if anyone wants to look at it.
Yep, I'll definitely have a link there for that one as well.
Okay.
All right, Maryann, thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thanks for having